If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain. It's free. There are creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. Anchor will distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many more. You can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. Download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. Hey guys, it's Jay. Welcome to Peer2Peer. Today's special guest is Legion. Legion, how are you doing?
I am doing cheekily well.
Off to a good start.
Yeah, the dog's by my side, so everything's good.
Yep.
He knows I'm on a call, so he has to be all up on my lap.
He's a good boy. He's a good pupper.
He is. He's a good stress relief and a good stressor. So he's kind of both. When I'm upset, he's next to me. When I'm even watching a thing on freaking Disney Plus, the dog is next to me if I start crying or I get upset because the rabbit didn't make it through surgery. Animal ER stuff. So yeah, I like to make myself cry, so the dog so my dog tries to make me feel better. Like, hey, guess what? And then I look at him going, this is why you see your vet regularly. So
it's like, damn, we discovered some kinks today on the podcast.
You ain't right. No, I'm kidding. Look, okay. We don't talk about the crying kink.
Yeah. So my first question for you is what kind of mental health problems or issues have you dealt with throughout your life?
Throughout my life, I've dealt with a variety of depression, anxiety, nervous issues. I think the worst was just not being able to sleep. So insomnia thrown on top of that. Which when I did sleep as a child, I would have horrendous nightmares. I haven't fully been diagnosed with it, but my mom at one point thought that I might have had some kind of personality disorder, which later I was diagnosed with ADD, ADHD. So basically I was hit with double whammy. I'm just like, okay, they're kind of the same thing, but not. Meaning caffeine has a really weird effect on me. But I've just normally know how to be socially awkward and socially distant at the same time, which throughout the years has either, if I like somebody, I don't know how to not talk. If I'm unsure or I dislike someone, I will just sit there quietly and study how they act. So I know how I can act in front of them. So as some has put it, or as my textbook has put it once before, it's kind of a sociopathic tendency, but it's not. It's just you're studying interaction to know how you can blend in.
Yeah, kind of like that chameleon effect.
And yeah, it's something to help you feel comfortable. It's something to figure out what's going on. And I've dealt with that all my life. I mean, I'm going on 35 this year. Yeah, 35. And it's something I've done since I can remember. And there's a lot of stuff that stems from either childhood, being the middle child, no matter which way I looked at it. I was either second oldest or the middle one. So it was always one of those, you either went with the flow or you hid. And back in the 90s, I don't think anyone really talked about mental health. a lot of people would push it to the back burner. If you had a mental problem, you were crazy, they would consider, a lot of people go, oh, so you're one of those crazy schizos or stuff like that. There was a lot of terms that I grew up with that you don't hear anymore, which is a good thing. Because it really wasn't fun. And also being partially dyslexic, I got called a lot of names. So again, I like to retreat it, and I was pretty much a loner. So there was a lot of mental health issues there that never got treated or looked at. And a lot of this shows with a lot of people in my generation, because you have us born in the late 80s, growing up in the 90s where things weren't taken seriously, and then you entered the 2000s where things are actually being looked at and people are actually starting to get the help they need. But you have a lot of us who are just like, no, we're not going to do that, because if we do that, we're considered weak. We can't say anything about it, because then our parents will tell us that we're crazy or that we're making it up. And I guess that's where a lot of anxiety comes from, I know for myself. Though I was lucky when I did bring it up to my mom. She's like, okay, so what do we need to do? I lucked out in the parent gene pool when it came to my mom and my stepdad. So I was one of the lucky ones. Some of my friends were not. I mentioned before this, one of my best friends was not. Everything for her just went downhill, and it's still going downhill to where I will get a text message from her every so often, and I'm wondering if she's going to be asking for money for bail or to attempt to go to rehab for the 5th time. But I'm pretty sure any money she gets, she's not using for rehab.
Yeah,
which is sad.
Yeah, that's really unfortunate to hear that, but that's kind of the big thing with mental health. It seems that substance abuse goes hand in hand with it, wouldn't you say?
Yes, it does. You see a lot of people who, and even in studies, because I have been studying to be a psychologist, so I get to read fun things and realize, why does that match me? And that scares me when you can see yourself in black and white in a textbook in front of you, and all you can think is, well, shit. And I'm supposed to be helping people with this. Hence why I'm still working on said degree. Because I need to make sure my own mental health is in check before I'm trying to make sure others people's are. And that's a very big thing about anyone who's considering that in life. You need to make sure you're okay before you make sure other people are okay. Because you can't, unless you're somewhat fixed, you can't help glue somebody back together if you're not glued together. And believe it or not, it's just glue, and glue doesn't always work.
Yep. And sometimes it dissolves and you have to piece it back together again.
Sometimes that super glue is actually just the white fun Elmer's glue, and it just got wet. So you're falling right back apart. Which is something that will help happen a lot. Especially when you finally come to terms of, you need to admit that there's a problem first. And I think that's where a lot of people struggle, is admitting that there is a problem. Because it's hard.
Yeah. Do you think that the reason why people struggle with asking for help, I mean, at least from your story and how you grew up, do you think it was hard because of the way you grew up, or do you think it was just the times? Because you mentioned the 90s being really difficult.
It was kind of a mix, because you were raised to obey the parents or you're going to get your butt beat, which, trust me, I'm shocked I didn't have scars from that. I did stupid stuff.
Right there with you.
I mean, it's either the times, the way that you're raised, it's easier to keep quiet. A big one that I saw a lot of which I was thankful that this didn't happen to me, was, oh, honey, just pray and it'll go away.
Mm.
A lot of my biological family on my mother's side is from the South. My mom was born in Kentucky. I luckily was raised in California, Colorado, where both states have a little bit more looser things, but you still have that religious undertone. Because I am a former Mormon. So that whole pray, fast upon it, ask Christ for guidance was a big thing. And I was lucky enough to be in a smaller branch. It was just me and my grandmother who would go to church. But you're also looking at the bigger picture of the time period where you didn't seek out mental health.
Mm.
Psychologists were for crazy people. You didn't have very many therapists. And you don't always trust your school psychologist or counselor to help you, because I went there with a problem once, told them what was going on, and I was told I was imagining it and thinking that a hug was something more. So let's just go with the fact that they pretty much blew off sexual assault in an elementary school. So it would turn off students from wanting to actually go get that help because you had people not believing you. And that was kind of the stigma. And it was something that you just didn't talk about. So it was a bit of the time, the generation, and even the area, because it was a small town. I mean, I grew up with the same group of friends and we went to the same classes, and I could name off everybody in my classes in that year that would have graduated with me if I stayed. That's a total of 15 people. And it's kind of daunting thinking about the fact that I went from a graduating class of 15 to over 2,000.
That's a big leap.
It is, because I moved to California in the beginning of my high school year, halfway through my freshman year. So I went from small town to nothing to Hemet, California, people. I thought Nucla had a drug problem. No, Hemet wins. Hemet wins.
Oh my gosh. And it's so funny how people have like this preconception that like, oh, the cute little small towns, they have like no drug problems or anything. And meanwhile, I'm over here going, hi, welcome to Medford.
We had 2 people disappear completely. No one has found them. Another person has disappeared without a trace. But they did find his truck, and they're pretty sure, because one of his properties he owned that somebody was renting was part of a big drug bust, that he was killed by accident in a bad drug deal.
Yeah, quote unquote accident.
Yeah, not with the information that cops have found, and they're still trying to find the suspect. So it's great.
Well,
yeah, it's like, yeah, no, small towns are worse than cities.
Yeah, but still,
at least
I mean,
know where to avoid.
Yeah.
Cities, you know what areas to go away from. Not a small town.
Yeah, which is true. Yeah. So going back to high school, and you mentioning that big jump, like, did that really affect like the mental health issues that you were dealing with? Like, did that make things worse? Like, how did you survive that period of your life?
It made things a lot worse for a while, because I moved with my mom, my brother, because my older sister stayed with my grandmother in Nucla because my grandma needed someone to take care of her. And my sister was like, no, I got to stay with grandma. I'm not going to abandon grandma. She has one leg, for crying out loud. She's like, I can't leave grandma. And mom understood, and it was her senior year anyways. And dog just heard someone. Where is Hades? Come here. It's just a UPS guy. Yeah. I'm going to turn the vibration up on that again.
Yep, it's all good.
But
yeah, this podcast was sponsored by the dog.
but it was a big culture shock. Because I went from a small high school that I could walk to school, and I was used to seeing classmates. Mind you, this is rural Colorado, still close to where Columbine was, people. I was used to seeing classmates pull up in their pickup truck, jump out, half in hunting gear, with their rifles still in the back of the truck, in the gun rack. Teachers did that too. That was normal. That didn't change until about their senior year of until 2004, 2005, where somebody actually got almost expelled because of it, even though it was the norm. It was because it was still loaded. That's the only reason he got in trouble, was he forgot to take the last shell out. But I went from that kind of small thing to one of the high schools had a freaking metal detector. At the time, my high school did not. I went from, I know this sounds horrible, but seeing a lot of people that looked as pale and white as me, and where I maybe had 2 Native friends and 1 person of color friend and Hispanic friends, to I was the minority. And that didn't scare me. That didn't worry me. I just thought, yay, new people. But then the anxiety kicked in to where all I wanted to do was hide in a corner. And for the first 2 weeks of school, that's what I did. I would have my lunch and I'd hide underneath the stairwell where nobody else was, and I'd sit by myself. I was afraid to ask for help in classes. I was afraid to talk to anyone. I was afraid to do anything. My locker partner was somebody I never met. I met them maybe the second week of school, and they're like, hey, we're actually locker partners. And she was actually really nice. So I actually made one friend that day. And she was one of the few friends that made sure every birthday she was there. And I went from having a birthday in December when nobody would show up because snow, Colorado, to a birthday in December in California where, hey, look, it's 80 out. Let's go for a swim, which was nice. But the daunting effects of that kind of culture shock, things didn't get better until I dropped my elective and went into ROTC, where I was pretty much put into a position where I had to make friends because the sergeant wouldn't let me get away with not. And then I was put into a position in the flight where I had to know people and read their routines, because I had to carry the stick with the pointy on it, the guidon. So I had to pretty much half lead everyone and make sure I stayed in step so that they could call the correct cadence so that it would push me to interact. And it helped. But mentally, I was screaming. I was still scared. I was a scared little kid in this big city where there was barbed wires on my school fence wall, where that was terrifying. I went from being able to walk off campus for lunch and go to my grandmother's to where you could not leave campus unless you were a junior or senior with a driver's license.
Dang.
And even then, my senior year, you were getting patted down when you came back to campus. Because my senior year is when a bunch of problems happened in California. We had one student bring a gun to school and threaten to shoot up the assembly, and in his own words, kill all the white kids so that a race war starts.
Ugh.
And his reasoning behind it when questioned and after they found the gun was, well, I'm Latino. We don't need any whiteys here. This is California.
Jesus.
And that was his exact words. And they even put that in the paper.
Oh boy.
Yeah, it was terrifying. I was happy to make it through high school. The pros of moving from a small school to that big school was I was able to get help with my dyslexia. I was able to get help with my ADHD. I was able to get that therapy I needed to not stutter when I talk, which I still do if you can't tell. But I was able to get what I needed, and I went from a DC student to being in the honor roll. So there was a pro to all that. I actually got to go to a school that helped, not one that just passed you along because of the No Kid Left Behind Act. So despite it being scary the first year, the rest of the time, because of ROTC, then theater and choir and FFA, it kind of got better, but I still wasn't comfortable coming out about any mental problems. I was still half underneath that blanket of religion will protect you as well. Which, no, it didn't. It made it worse. A lot worse for the longest time. And I mean, yeah.
Oh, sorry. I'm just curious. Because you struggled quite a bit with your mental health during that time. When did it start to actually get better? Like when you felt like, okay, this is what I have, and now I have a better hang on it. Like what happened to make that change occur for you?
What helped me get a better grasp on it and help me be more comfortable and look forward to things is actually my best friend, who I still talk to her on a daily basis. It's because of her I have a cell phone. It's because of her that I love writing stories, that I got into anime, that I fell in love with D&D, that I played EverQuest 1 and 2, that I play Final Fantasy 14, that I play Monster Hunter, and I own every single game except for the new one because I need a Switch, but that I owned every single Monster Hunter, and I have a DS. My best friend Liz actually helped me pull out of the gutter. It was my sophomore year, and I was on flag detail, so I had to say the Pledge of Allegiance. I was in uniform, mind you, and when I was in uniform, I would always wear the skirt and the pumps because they just looked better, and I didn't like the pants. The pants were weird. So I booked it from saying the pledge to the theater because that was my second period class, and it was the first time me doing it, so my teacher didn't know. Till I explained it to her. She's like, oh, okay, you're not late. Don't worry about it. And she's like, well, since you're in uniform in Twinsett, you can't go on stage today. Which was a rule, is if you were in uniform, you weren't allowed to go on stage because no one was allowed to touch you. No one was, because you're government property at that point for an entire day, which is funny. High school that belongs to the government. But there was other rules that you couldn't do a bunch of stuff because you didn't want to mess your uniform up. And so I went to go sit down, and there was another cadet in that class, and she looked right at me. She's like, you stuttered so bad. I'm like, shut up. She's like, okay. And then I looked at her ranks like, okay, she's not an officer, so I didn't screw up too bad. And she's like, I'm your listed advisor. I'm like, oh, fuck. She's like, you're not supposed to swear in uniform either. I'm like, and she's like, well, who gives a shit? We're in class. Which that part made me giggle. And I sat down with her, and she's like, I'm Liz. And I gave her my name, and we sat and talked, and she told me the story that she was writing, which is an ongoing type role play that we actually have still going to this day, that we have restarted like 12 times until it comes to something we like. And right now it's at that steady thing. And now both of our artwork is reflecting that damn story we're working on. So we're nerds still. But she became my best friend. She became my guiding light with a bunch of issues. She was the same person that pushed me to want to do better. She was there when I needed her the most. She was there when I had the final blowout. Well, she was there for me when I came home from the final blowout of me and my bio dad, where I pretty much told him to go to fucking hell, which that actually helped my mental health a little bit. So sometimes confrontation is a good thing.
Hey.
But she was there when I needed a shoulder to cry on. And we would always meet at this stupid tree, or I'd meet at her house, or she'd meet at my house. So my mom would be like, okay, where's Crystal? Oh yeah, she's with Liz. Or where's Liz? Oh yeah, she's at Crystal's. It was normal. It was perfectly normal for us. And having that connection and someone who actually understood you, that helped 1,000 times more than anything else at that time in my life, especially as a teenager. I went from attempting to eat an entire bottle of Advil, which, by the way, I never suggest doing, because all it did was, some people did not focus, it just made me throw up violently.
Mm.
So yeah, that helped. It kept me from hurting myself, cutting myself. It kept me from just hiding in my room. It gave me something to look forward to. It gave me a drive to be better, because she also pushed me to go to college. She's also the one who pushed me to move up to Washington. She was the one who pushed me to be better. And now she has 2 beautiful kids that I'm the godmom to. So I have a goddaughter and a godson, which they're the sweetest and most adorable things in the world. And one of them's barely learning to talk, and one of them, you want to know where the mute button is. But it because of her, I'm sitting here today.
She sounds like an amazing person to be able to be that shoulder and to be that light for you.
And she's also one of the ones that no matter what happened, it's like, well, I came out as a lesbian. She's like, called it. I'm like, shut up. She's like, I was your first kiss, so fuck you. I'm like, fuck off.
I like her.
Yeah. And she was the one that was by my side when I'm like, you know what? Fuck the church. I'm pagan, bitches. And she's like, duh. I mean, it doesn't take a rocket scientist. And even my grandma was like, Crystal, she's right. It's like, the Mormon grandmother and my best friend are agreeing on something. I'm screwed.
It's like the stars are in position. Something bad is going to happen.
Stars are in position, Grandma. Here's a Ouija board.
Here, talk to your friends, Grandma.
Hey, Grandma, so you want me to call your friends? And Grandma's response, oh, fuck you. Most foul-mouthed Mormon you'll ever meet was my grandmother.
Sounds like my grandma. God rest her soul.
Yeah, I know I miss that woman, but Mom's up there with her, and they're probably both like, where the fuck did we go on with this child? And my grandma's like, you. That one's you.
Oh my gosh. So it sounds like having that strong foundation with friendship helped you out with your mental health and the adversity that you faced with it. So what inspired you to go for psychology? Because you mentioned that you're studying that. So did your experiences kind of dictate that for you, or was it something that over time that you discovered that you were, good at, or that you understood?
It was the experience of not feeling like I had somebody there to save me, that I was drowning. And then the realization that there were so many others who were like me, who didn't have that friend that saved me, who didn't have that lifeline. Even today, I still struggle. I mean, I'm still dealing with my mom just dying. Sorry.
No, it's okay. I'm sorry about that.
But if it wasn't for my lifeline, or even for Soren, when their mom died, which was literally a year ago as well. So it literally was their mom died, then it was their birthday, and then this year, the day after their birthday, my mom passed.
That was a lot.
And that was 2020 and 2021 so far for us. And I mean, I'm just happy I'm not one of my coworkers who lost their grandpa and then their uncle and then their dad in the span of a month. literally less than 3 weeks apart.
Was this pandemic related?
Nope. The grandpa died of probably old age because he was in his 90s and they were expecting that. The uncle was a stroke and his dad was a massive heart attack. My mother wasn't pandemic related either. It was cancer. So fuck cancer. A woman who spent 15 years of her life doing Relay for Life didn't practice what she preached sometimes. But I decided to go into psychology because I needed a hero that I didn't have until later. And I couldn't trust anyone because of the stigma that was put on it. Sometimes you have to become your own hero to help others. And I'd rather help others than watch them drown. I want to be able to be there for people. And I know a lot of the times I say I like to talk, but if a friend comes to me with a problem, I will sit there and just listen for hours as they go on. I might give a suggestion or a hug or help them out, but I'm there to listen to them, to see what they need. And if that's just someone to talk to, that's someone to talk to. But if that's somebody to bounce ideas off of, hey, I'm there. Or if that's somebody to just remind them that they're not alone. Everybody needs that. And if I can be that person for just one person, then I did my job. Then I did what needed to be done. And I believe everybody deserves somebody like that. So psychology was one of those big things that was just like, you know what? It can do something to help.
You see it more as a job or kind of like a calling, just given what you've been through?
Kind of both, actually, because yeah, I can make money off of it, woohoo, but I would do it for free, and I have for my friends, because why would you be willing to just sit there with friends for hours on end, letting them vent and go, okay, so that's $25 an hour? No, for me, it's more of I feel it's more of a duty, because we don't have a lot of people in this world to do that with, or a lot of people around that people feel comfortable with, because you have people who are in the community that are afraid to come out saying, hey, I'm bi, hey, I'm trans, because they don't feel safe coming out to just anyone. And there needs to be more people who are like, look, I don't care if you identify as a rubber ducky. I'm here for you. And I was here rubber ducky because I looked over and it's staring at me.
That's perfect.
To me, it's you identify as a person, and it doesn't matter your skin color. It doesn't matter your gender. It doesn't matter your sexual identity. It doesn't, okay, it might matter if you're a racist twat or not. But if you're working to get better, then hey, good on you. But it doesn't matter. If you're somebody who needs help, then get help. And there's people out there who are willing to listen. And it's just finding that person. And there needs to be more.
And do you see things getting better when it comes to mental health, like from the time period that you grew up in till now? Has there been bigger changes with that, or do you think that we're
Yes.
still,
We're still
on this?
kind of
Okay.
in the infancy of seeing what it can do, but you have more resources out there now. You have apps, oddly enough, you have websites, you have webinars, you have counselors almost on every street corner. When it comes to offices, you have work that do things to make sure that you can get counseling. You have insurance that's covering it now. You're not just prescribed, oh, you're depressed, take this, by a normal doctor. It's like, okay, go see a psychologist or go see a therapist, see what they can do to help you, before they immediately just say, oh, pills. there's no more of that. There's still a stigma, but it's not as bad as it is because you have more people going, look, I'm depressed. Lockdown hasn't helped that because it has taken away the human element to a lot of things. And people are slowly getting back into the human element.
How have you?
Also,
Oh, sorry.
sorry.
No, you're
But
good.
also walk away from things like a very stressful job because you have a better opportunity in front of you is also something you need to look at. If something is stressing you to the point of you can't sleep, maybe you should look into changing that. So mental health has taken more of a forefront than it did in the past.
So regarding the pandemic, would you say that it has made your current issues worse, or how did you navigate through that?
Well, I got maybe a month of work at home because my supervisor hated the fact that I would send pages upon pages of notes on Zoom videos and on YouTube videos about mental health, because that's all. I was a custodian at the time, and right now, currently, depending on the date, I still am. And so there's not much work at home you can do when your job is literally cleaning a school. So there's that big problem there. But it helped me realize that I could do better than what I was currently at. Then going back to work wearing a mask all the time, with the staggered shift starts, with the keeping away from people, cleaning off every surfaces, it got daunting, and then it got frustrating. Frustrating because people weren't telling us when they were in certain places, so we couldn't clean up after them. The fact that nobody cared about our health enough to deem us worthy of hazard pay. The realization of essential means disposable was the biggest thing that happened that kind of took a toll of that. They don't care about you. They don't care about your life. They care about the bottom line of money. And even a school does that too. They depend on students, so therefore they depend on somebody to dump the damn trash. And they don't care if that person ends up sick or not. And it made me realize that I need to get better. I need better. And then they did layoffs. My department was hit. 3 of us got laid off because of it. 2 people were already planning to leave anyways, so they just added that to the pool. I was one of the people cut after over 7 years of working, because my 5 years as a part-timer in their eyes, 5 years that I was on call, that I did overtime when asked, that I did anything that they needed, didn't count worth shit. The only thing that counted was that 2 whole years of full-time. And so that point I was at my lowest because I felt I wasn't good enough. And then I pulled myself up and I'm like, no, I can't be thinking like this. And I put in applications, and one of those applications just recently paid off. And I'll be handing in my 2 weeks notice on the 1st. And so I don't know if they're going to think it's a joke or not. There's that. But it's steps like that during this pandemic that makes you realize you can do better. If you feel miserable, if you feel trapped, look at the situation and look at what you can change. And if you can't change anything, well, see what you can. And that sometimes starts by small things like I mentioned my hair color, or okay, I'm going to start doing jumping jacks in the morning, annoy the hell out of my downstairs neighbors. I'm going to start planting things. I'm going to have a garden, or I'm going to start writing a story or keeping a diary. Just change one thing and you'll realize it helps. And that's kind of how I got through the pandemic and how I'm still getting through this pandemic. Because even though I'm getting my 2nd shot Friday, so I'll be fully vaccinated.
Woo!
And for a weekend, but this pandemic isn't going anywhere. And it probably won't for another year to 2 years because of what it is. And because of how some people are treating it.
Yeah.
Florida, I'm looking at you.
Yeah, we're totally judging, like that whole area just down there.
Right. Yeah, you want to know the dead? I feel bad, and I hope nobody actually does get sick for their stupidity, because we don't need any more death.
Yeah.
But it has taken a toll, and if it's for the better, it's for the better. If it's for the worse, we'll find out.
Yeah, it's definitely a way to look at it. I mean, there's something that I wanted to ask you that it's kind of bothering me in a way as someone that deals with mental health and disability, because it's like this pandemic brought about this revelation that, oh, you can work from home. Oh, you can have accommodations and such. And there's this talk about wanting to go back to normal, and that we're close to going back to normal now because of the vaccine. So how are you looking at your situation in comparison to that?
It's not normal. I'm sorry. We're not going to be going back to normal. As somebody who's been on the front lines of this bullshit since it started, I may not be a healthcare worker, but I'm that same bitch that dumps your trash at the moment still. So I've seen how people have treated this and how some people think it's a joke. I have family members that think it's a fucking joke. Yeah, well, I don't get into that. I still love them, but they're stupid. There is
Same
not
sister.
going to, yeah, there is not going to be a normal anymore. And that new normal is you're going to have people who are wearing masks all the time, regardless of a vaccine, regardless of being that. And I 100%, even though it sucks, I have COPD. My ass is still wearing a mask. I have like 4 different ones. And my favorite one says love wins and bleeding the rainbow. It's currently in my car next to my kitties. But it's not going to go away anytime soon, like I said, because you have people who aren't listening to rules. I mean, we had 3 people out because somebody decided to go into work sick and not tell us where they were until 2 days later, where one of our people ended up having to call out sick and tested positive. And that's the only reason we found out that other person had tested positive and was in that area, because people don't like to listen.
Mm.
So the new normal is going to be still what we're going through now. But when it comes to being disabled and not able to physically go into a job, what it does open up for people who want to have a job, who want to do something, who, I don't blame anyone who wants to be on disability. I mean, more power to you. What you want to do it, damn it. Do what gets you through the day. Do what helps you. Do what helps your mental health. Do what helps your physical health. Do what you need to do for you. If that's also, hey, that means I can maybe get a job if I wanted to. Because I know a few friends who hated the fact that they became physically disabled because, one, for fibromyalgia, she can't even move half the time without being in a spasm. And another that it depends on the day of the week.
Yep.
Because they have chronic vomiting syndrome, which that is a scary thing. But if they can do a typing job from home and be able to earn that just that little extra income that's keeping them, instead of maybe a check every month that doesn't always cover everything, and where you have to pick and choose if you get your medication or if you have food to eat this week, which one that needs to change regardless. It needs to be a rate where you can live off of and be fine, not one that you're guessing. But if you can get that job where you can get paid more to where you can have a better situation in life, it's now become a lot easier. And so there's a pro and con to this, to all of this, of there's a chance to get out of that hole for some people. And there's a chance of a lot of these face-to-face jobs, like being at school, are going to go away because those institutions may go away in tune because more people are at home instead, and that they can do this stuff from home. I'm not saying that elementary schools and high schools are going to go away. I doubt that. But there's a big chance that most colleges will probably be moving online, and physical buildings will only be there for labs or nursing stuff and daycare. Because right now that's kind of all what my school's being used for.
Mm.
Daycare, dental lab, and science labs for STEM, along with the automotive department, which that's still a big thing. But there is a lot of jobs that are either disappearing or moving online. And that opens opportunities for everyone. And it's daunting, it's scary, because again, you're removing the human element. And when you change your replies to being, okay, I don't have to look at this person, I can just type out what I feel and what needs to be done, and I can be heartless about it and not feel guilty. That's kind of where you got to try to find the balance, because you're losing that human empathy because it's so much easier to just send an email. So it's finding that balance that's going to be the bigger struggle nowadays than a new normal, because the new normal is what we're doing now, which makes me miss anime conventions.
Oh God, me too. Just thinking about that the other day. Like for those listening, I've met Legion at a convention. That's how we became friends, and that's like how I bonded with so many people over the years. So it's really sad that we don't have that.
We don't have that.
Yeah.
And I kind of miss glomp circles. I hate to say it. I
Oh
miss those freaking dooms. Those, how quickly can you tear a cosplay? Or why you don't dress up as Hetalia people anymore.
Yeah, the late night raves and hotel rooms, man, those were fun.
Oh, the Jello shots. The Jello shots. So many of them. So many regrets.
I know, but so many good stories that came out of that.
Oh God, yes. You did what with a wig? You tied who to who's Italy?
You went out the window? What?
Why is there fake blood everywhere?
Where the hell did you get that pizza? We don't have money.
How'd you get that pizza? Or why is a bathroom a murder scene? You use what to dye your skin red? I had a friend that did that. They used fake blood, took a bath in it in order to make themselves the human version of Red 13.
Oh, Jesus.
I love this woman to death. She was the coolest person ever, and I will miss her for forever and ever. And again, if you have diabetes, don't freaking lose track of it ever. Please don't. Ever.
Yes, please.
I'm done losing friends to illnesses. I'm done losing friends to stupidity. I'm done losing anyone. Okay, I'm done losing people. So my people, like you, better be good and don't make me have to go to another funeral this year. Understood, Missy?
Yeah, that'd be really nice if we could just avoid funerals for the next couple of years after the last, 2 years or so.
That'd be freaking peachy.
So getting back to your story and what you deal with, currently right now, how would you rate your mental health right now, just given everything that you've been through?
Before the whole walking away from my work, I think I'd be at a 5, but this week, because I'm in such good spirits, I'm actually sitting about a 7 to an 8, because I have the light at the end of the tunnel. Fun little metaphors. And it feels nice to realize stress can be lifted off. So it varies week to week, to be honest. And when I'm feeling bad, that's pretty much when I radio silence everyone and you don't have these stupid beams from me on Facebook. Which is when you should worry, because then that also means either A, I'm sleeping all the time, or B, I'm just not there. I'm just watching YouTube things about Karens. But it also depends on my partner's mood. When they're they know when I'm in a bad mood. And so if also when it comes, again, that human element of having somebody there besides just my dog, it helps because they can put me back in check going, yo, you're being a bitch, stop it. Or do I need to throw Snickers at you? Or are you taking your heart medication? Are you doing what you need to do to be better? When's your next therapist appointment? Because yes, I do have a therapist. So I am also I am a big advocate to get somebody to talk to. Because there are plans out there that will work with you and that are cost efficient and that any insurance actually will cover, including the crappy state insurance that's out there. You can get it through Kaiser, by the way, and it costs you nothing. And they have great healthcare right now in Washington, which is really shocking because it's Kaiser.
As an Oregonian hearing that, I'm like, really?
Yeah, up here in Washington, if you say, hey, I'm part of Kaiser, I need this, boom, they have it. Boom, you have it. I have the best doctor in the world, and if it wasn't for her, I'd probably be 6 feet under by now because of a heart condition that I didn't know I had, and my other doctor was treating wrong. That could have killed me with what he was treating me with. So, yeah, I guess it varies state to state, but the second I said that I needed therapy, she got me in touch with what I needed to and got me on that list for a therapist. And my first appointment's actually Monday, so it's gonna be fun. But I would say do it. Find any ways. I'm paying like $20 a visit, but hey, I'd rather pay that than this is my family crying at a funeral. I'd rather pay that than have my spouse walk out because they can't stand the person I've become. So getting help, there's nothing to be ashamed of to ask for help. If you are raised with that stigma that asking for help is weak, no, not asking for help is weak. Not asking for help is, I'm going to say this nicely, is pathetic. You can't do it on your own. Sometimes you need help, even if you don't think you do. Ask the people around you going, hey, do you think I'm, and if they go, yes, or they go, of course not, maybe you should listen to them because the people around you love you and can tell you more about yourself than you know. And that's the best thing I can tell anyone is you're not weak. You're not pathetic. You're stronger than you think you are. The second you say, I need help.
That is well spoken.
It's because you're taking charge. And anyone who says that prayer worked for them, good for them. You may not be that person. Meditation works for them, good for them. You do what you need to do for you. Just because it worked for one person doesn't mean it will work for all.
Yeah,
but just
it's not a one-size-fit-all sort of deal for people.
Yeah, but if going for a hike works for you, then do that. If playing with your dog works for you, then do that. But just know that people are out there to help and they will listen. Sit, Bubba. Unlike my dog.
And again, we are being sponsored by the dog.
Yeah, he's literally sitting here looking at me like, okay, Mom, it's almost time for my walkies. So,
I mean, that's kind of convenient because we're getting towards the tail end of this. And real quick, is there one last thing you'd want to say or anything that you feel needs to be said?
One thing that I know a lot of people need to hear daily is you're beautiful. You can do this shit. Go get them. Just remember, I actually have a little thing that I have posted behind my computer that says, you can do this. You got this. And you do. Just wake up every morning going, oh, crap. You wake up every morning going, what can I do today to make myself better? Or just remind yourself that you can do it. That one little smile, even if it's behind a damn mask, will mean the world to your barista. Trust me, my coffee people know me. They write have a great day, Loki, on all my bags. Because, Legion, I have many names, damn it. They know my order better than I know my order. But just be kind to others, be kind to yourself. And you, honestly, you got this.
Again, that very well said. And Legion, I want to thank you for being on the podcast today and for sharing your story and just being your amazing self. Because, man, I know you've been through a lot of shit in the last couple years or so. And to see, for those of you listening, I've known Legion again for a while. Just to see the strength that you have and the endurance that you have emotionally, and mentally, it's inspiring and it keeps me going even when I'm going through really rough times myself. So thank you. And I hope that you sharing your story is going to help out more people. And
I hope so too.
yeah. And again, I really appreciate you willing to do this, because I know this is not an easy thing for people, to do, to tell their story. But I think if we have more people like you coming forward and talking about what they've been through, it's going to help people connect more.
Yeah, and I hope it does. I hope somebody hear these words and realize that they can do it. They don't need to suffer. They don't need to be alone. And if they are alone and they are scared, that there is help out there that's just sitting there with their hand out to you. You just got to grab it.
I agree with you. And again, that was the lovely Legion. Legion, again, thank you so much for being on here.
No problem. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, anytime. If you guys would like to, please consider supporting the podcast. That way, it would just help support me. I can interview more people, have more time for more stories, and we can try to expand this thing and help out as many people as we can. Again, thank you guys for being here, and until next time, bye.
Bye.